Hello there, and welcome to Slooh, Space for Everyone. I'm Jerry Montreux, your host and your expedition leader here. And tonight we are howling at the full moon and exploring the surreal, the spooky, the sinister worlds of full moons, wolves, and some nasties that go ripping flesh in the night, specifically werewolves. Yes, I said werewolves. I mean, ever wonder if you or perhaps a loved one might actually be a werewolf? Well, fear not. No, we're here to help you find out. That's very important in a relationship. You know, if one's a werewolf and one's not, very important to know that. Trust me on this one. All right, but first, to the matter at hand, the full wolf moon. We've got our telescopes pointed at the glowing orb. Hopefully the clouds will part and we can see it. Here to tell us all about the telescopes we're using and what we're looking at is Slooh astronomer Paul Cox, former werewolf, live from the country of Chile. Paul, welcome. What are you doing in Chile?
Well, first of all, I had a shave for the show. You know, I wanted to just kind of keep that a little bit disguised, but thank you for outing me there, Jerry. We are doing loads here in Chile. I'm here on a hot, balmy summer's evening, actually, and I'm meeting with our partners down here, the Catholic University. And Slooh members will be rather interested to know that I'm also installing a new telescope as well as replacing the old telescope. So we've got plenty to look forward to after this trip.
Good, hard work. That's really good to hear. What feeds are we going to look at tonight, Paul?
We got a number, actually. We've got some from the Canary Islands. That's our flagship observatory at the Institute of Astrophysics of the Canary Islands. And this is a special camera looking down from Pico del Teide, the very peak. Actually, it's the highest point in the whole of Spanish territory at about 11,000 feet. And that's actually looking down on the observatory. And you can see there, we've had some cloud this evening, but the clouds parted this evening just enough for us to get some live feeds coming in. We've got our color all-sky camera view, and this actually is from the wide field telescope, Jerry. And that kind of lovely mottled effect is because we were looking through this very thin cloud. And you know, with moon images and also solar images as well of the sun, I often think that a little bit of cloud adds to the kind of three-dimensional character of the images. So I don't mind a little bit of cloud when it comes to a full moon image. So we've got the wide field. Lovely. Sorry, say again?
I'm sorry, I'm saying it's lovely. Well done.
It is, and we've got the color all sky camera, and that will show us actually the clouds, the pesky clouds there. So you know, it's really odd just how well you can image the moon even through some fairly thick clouds. But we've also got the Chile telescopes on the moon as well. And minutes ago, we had this great shot. Hopefully we've got that of the full wolf moon. Look at that rising above the Andes Mountains. So this is pointed out, that funny black bit that you see is kind of trees and bushes on the top of the local mountain range as we captured this very large wolf moon rising above the Chile horizon. So that's a pretty cool shot. And we've got those high magnification views from that telescope all evening as well. That's
awesome. I can feel my fingernails growing as I watch that. All right, speaking of Chile, I understand there was a recent discovery, Paul, by a couple of our Slooh members you want to talk about?
Oh, yes. We've got to congratulate Bernd and Kim, Bernd Lutenhona and Kim Breedlove. They didn't discover the comet, but it was a comet discovered only last week, and they were one of the first people to confirm that it was a comet. So they quickly used the Chile telescope and took some images of it. It was discovered in the southern hemisphere in Australia, and they were able to follow up with the Slooh Chile telescope, and they had one of the first confirmation images, which is always quite an honor in itself, actually. And there it is. There is the image that they took. And those funny white lines that you're seeing there, the dark lines, those are actually stars, Joe, because the comet's moving against the background stars, and because it's so faint, astronomers stack images together so that they can see and pick out the really faint objects. So really that's the stars kind of moving during all of those long exposures.
That's fabulous. Now here's an all-encompassing question, and it may have an obvious answer, but how do you think your work helps our members?
My work? Well, I think we'd have to ask them, but certainly the work that I'm doing at the moment is of direct benefit because it's installing new telescopes and commissioning new telescopes that were installed at the end of last year at the Canary Islands observatories. At the end of all of this, Jerry, by certainly mid-year, and most of them are going to be coming online in February, members are going to have 10 telescopes that they can control. That's pretty awesome. And we've got some very specialist telescopes as well. Because we've increased the number, we can install a couple and focus them specifically on one kind of object. So the new Chile telescope that I'm installing is specifically for planets and the moon. And that's going to be a live video feed of those. So we're really, really looking forward to that one.
Well, as I say often, you the man, Paul. All right, you've been traveling all over the last week or so. You were just in Texas. What was going on down there?
Well, that was the American Astronomical Society. That's a huge meeting of professional astronomers. And we were invited to make a presentation to one of the educational sessions there about our new initiative, Slooh Classroom. And that's launching in February too, where whole classrooms of kids can be using and watching the live feeds of the telescopes in their classroom. And there's a great extra bit of that whole initiative, and that is that every USA class that signs up to that program will be twinned with an African or South American school, so they can collaborate as well and learn about different cultures, as well as doing a little bit of science together.
Wow. I washed my car last week. That's what I did. And you're doing this. Well, listen, we got to run, Paul. Thanks so much. I understand they have good red wine in Chile, so I don't have to tell you to enjoy yourself.
Absolutely, but not very good air conditioning. So cheerio.
Yeah. Poor guy. All right, we'll see you. Coming up on the show, we're going to continue to look at these great feeds from our observatories in Chile and the Canary Islands, and I'll be talking with a host of amazing guests to get a really global view of this full wolf moon. Astronomy journalist and author Bob Berman will be here to talk about the full moon and what makes this particular one interesting to astronomers. He'll also tell us whether the moon affects human behavior. I have a sneaky feeling I know what the answer is to that one. Later, the name Wolf Moon, where does it come from? Our human spirit correspondent, Helen Avery, has been speaking with a member of the Ojibwe tribe and will be here to fill us in. We'll also meet a few of these creatures as we look at some live wolf cams. That's right, we'll chat with a wolf expert to see if they really do howl at the moon. At the moment, they are not. They are taking a well-deserved rest, I believe. And finally, we'll find out all about the myth of the werewolf, one of the world's most enduring and, in my opinion, endearing monsters. But the one and only Bob Berman is coming up next, so don't go slinking off anywhere. Hear me?
This February, a ring of fire will rise over planet Earth. Millions will be plunged into the moon's shadow as a solar eclipse will make its way across South America, through Chile and Argentina, before crossing the Atlantic Ocean, making landfall in Africa, casting Angola, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Zambia into shadow. On February 26th, explore an eclipse like you never have before. Be a part of this worldwide right Slooh. Space for everyone.
Yes, Michael J. Fox in The Immortal Teen Wolf. 1985. Before the show began, I actually looked it up on IMDb. I looked up some of the reviews, and there's a scene in the movie where Michael J. Fox puts on a basketball uniform. I actually forget, but he wears a basketball uniform, becomes the wolf. And one of the reviewers said he looked like a cross between Chewbacca and Bill Walton. Teen Wolf. All right, welcome back to our full Wolf Moon show here on Slooh, Space for Everyone. My name's Jerry, and now we'll get to the howling at the moon very shortly. But before we cover all manner of wolfy stuff, let's get to know our closest neighbor here in the solar system. I'm talking, of course, about the moon. And here to get us better acquainted is astronomy author and journalist Bob Berman. Bob, welcome. Very quick and to the point. Why do we have a full moon every month?
Well, that's its orbit. It goes around Earth in 27.32166 days. That's awfully close to a month. And then while it's doing that, we're going around the sun. So the angle toward the sun changes. So factor that in, and you get a full moon it's called a lunation, one lunation every 29 and a half days. That's awfully close to the 30 or 31 days of most months. That's not an accident. Month sounds like moon, month. Obviously, the period was derived from the moon's cycle of phases. So no accident that we get a full moon once a month.
Okay, so what makes this January moon so special?
Well, it's special for a number of reasons. It's the full moon that's either the highest of the year or the second highest. Depends on the year. It depends on really how December's full moon lands. If the December full moon lands within 10 days or so of the solstice, which it will this December, then this moon now, tonight, is the second highest. And not just highest, but brightest, because it's shining through less air, and whitest, because what makes the moon look yellow or amber or honey-colored is stuff in the atmosphere, mostly dust and moisture, and winter air tends to be very dry. So for all these reasons, less air, higher altitude, it's the whitest, brightest, highest moon of the year, or the second most. So it's special, it's overhead. And that means actually, paradoxically, that people tend not to notice it, because the April, May, June, and July moons are pretty much at eye level. They rise at the horizon. Horizon is eye level. But at their highest, they're at most only 20 degrees high, just a little above horizon level, even at midnight or 1 a.m. when they're at their highest. And that's what we notice. We look straight ahead. Not many of us are craning our necks and looking high overhead for the moon tonight. So this doesn't get, it's like in those movies where Jason Bourne or James Bond, our hero, you know, when the bad guy's coming into his prison cell or into his room, sometimes they hide on the ceiling using their hand. I don't even know how they do it, with their handholds and their footholds, and they're up above on the ceiling, and the bad guy comes in and he looks around the room. He doesn't see the hero, because people look straight ahead. They don't look overhead. So this moon, because it's not straight ahead, actually does not get noticed. So, but that does make it special. Another reason why it's unique.
Yeah, it's, you know, guards are obviously morons in movies. Like, don't they watch other movies? You know, they never look up. I'm screaming at the guard, look up, idiot. Okay, a bit later on in the show, we'll be talking about werewolves, as you already know. But the moon has been said to affect men and women in many different ways. Do you think the full moon actually has an effect on people? Does it cause people to act strangely?
Doesn't seem to. I mean, you'd think it would, because we have words like lunacy, lunatic, that obviously derived from a belief that the moon can do that. And if people believe something, there's a psychogenic effect that would make it so in susceptible people. So you'd think that susceptible people would start acting a little twitchy and strange at the night of the full moon. However, a number of studies to admissions to mental hospitals and calls to crisis centers, and by all parameters, measuring mental illness episodes, suicides, all sorts of things like that. None of these go up at the time of the full moon. So far as we can tell, that's just a myth.
So it's just the stuff of legend. Okay. What makes the full moon everybody's favorite phase? I mean, why not the half moon, the quarter moon? Why didn't the Native Americans name those, Bob?
Well, I think it came from our obsession with the circle. The sun is round. The ancient Greeks certainly, and many others, regarded the circle as nature's perfect shape, because there's no sharp edges, there's no beginning, there's no end. Every part of the circle is equidistant from the center. So it's considered a divine shape. And the full moon is pretty darn round. There's almost nothing on Earth that's as round as the full moon. The moon is only out of round by 1 part in 500, meaning its diameter is 2,160 miles. That's 4 miles out of round from that 2,160. So it's awfully special to see such a perfectly round object. Now, why the football-shaped gibbous moon or the half moon or the crescent shape, why don't the Native American tribes name that? Name each half moon of the year? They don't. So, plus, the full moon is the only moon that's out all night long. The half moon is only out for half the night, oddly enough. The crescent moon is only out for a couple of hours on the nights when there's a crescent moon out. But the full moon is out all night and it's never seen in the daytime. Another extra little goodie that makes it special.
I'm going to call change.org because I want crescent moons to be named. All right, that's just me. Bob, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. As always,
Pleasure.
astronomy author and journalist Bob Berman. All right, coming up later on in the show, I'll be joined by Slooh's human spirit correspondent Helen Avery, who will tell us all about the myth of the werewolf. And we'll get to know the wolves themselves with Cameron Feaster of the International Wolf Center. But up next, Helen is here to chat about the origin of the name Full Wolf Moon. So don't go away.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. All steps for man, one giant leap for mankind.
There you go, Wolfman 2010, Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins. You know what I call that? That's 2 hours of my life I'll never get back. I actually watched it last week. Yeah. And welcome back to our full Wolf Moon show here on Slooh, Space for Everyone. I'm Jerry Monteur. Earlier in the show, we learned about the full moon, but what about the wolves? And how did this moon get its name? And what significance do the moon and wolves have to other cultures? Joining us now is our human spirit correspondent, Helen Avery. So, Helen, where did the name come from?
Where indeed. So, for this particular moon, we take the name from the Algonquin nations, and they called it the wolf moon because at this time of year, there were wolves in the forest near the villages who were very hungry, and you could hear them howling. And so it was said that for the whole period of January, you would hear them howling. And so when this moon appeared, they called it the full wolf moon. But that was just the Algonquin nations. The moon has this particular moon, the first moon of the year, has many different names, and they were seen not by everyone, not by every nation, but as being these 13 moons that represented the 13 scales on an old turtle back. And so for some, this was called the moon of the popping trees, and others called it the hunger moon, but there are many different names. But this is the one we sort of refer to with the Farmer's Almanac, the Algonquin in the Northeast, those peoples.
So from what I hear, the wolf is really behind the movement of the entire heavens for the Ojibwe tribe, correct?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because the Ojibwe people, so they're from, they live in Minnesota, where our wolf cams are tonight, and Michigan, North Dakota, and Wisconsin. This is actually the moon of the big spirit for them. However, of all the nations, they have like the biggest connection to the wolves. So what we're looking at right now is the ecliptic, or the constellations as seen by the Ojibwe, and that they refer to the ecliptic as the wolf trail. They sort of considered that movement of the planets and the moon and the sun in the sky to be the footprint of a lone wolf that was looking for its mate. So it's like right up there in the sky, embedded in their own astronomy, the wolf itself.
Now, beyond the wolf trail, the wolf is also part of the very creation story for the Ojibwe, isn't that right?
Yeah, and I had the pleasure this week of talking to some of the Ojibwe peoples. Carl Gorboy in particular, he has written a couple of books about the Ojibwe and how they saw the constellation and their connection with the wolf and the creation myth. So the myth is, or the story rather, is that the creator put original man on the land, and he was to go and name everything that he saw. And when he did that, he went back to the creator and said, well, I've named everything, but I can't help but notice that everything comes in pairs, and I'm all alone. And so the creator said, I will send you a wolf to keep you company, and the two of you will walk the land. So Wolf and Original Man walked the land together and became very close, like brothers. And when they had walked every part of the land, they went back to the creator and said, well, now what? And the creator said to them, now it's time for your paths to separate, but your lives will reflect each other. Oh, look, there's a wolf.
Oh, this is awesome.
So,
That's just awesome. I'm sorry,
right.
Helen.
So your lives will reflect each other, and you will always be brothers, and whatever happens to a wolf will happen to the Ojibwe, and whatever happens to the Ojibwe will happen to the wolf. So it's very intertwined.
Well, this belief about the way man and wolf are linked, it still is a very strong belief today, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's part of the myth, but it's also part of the history. So another part of this creation story has it that the creator says to the Ojibwe and to the wolf that both will be feared by another race, both will lose their land to another race, but eventually both will get their land back. So it's more than just like a myth and a story to the Ojibwe people. It's their history and their culture, and they firmly believe that as you know, as they receive some of their lands back and the wolf comes back in population, that the two reflect each other. So they work very hard around wolf preservation and wolf management in those particular areas. And it's very interesting. Some of the people I was talking to were explaining that, you know, the deer are seen as being there for wolf and man equally. And so when huntsmen come along and say, you know, wolf free to all the deer, we need to cull the wolves, to the Ojibwe, that's the wrong way of looking at it, because wolf and man are brothers and they share the deer, they share the hunting rights. So it's, you know, it's part of how they live now, and it's going to be part of their future too.
As
And
well,
very
it should
beautiful.
be, in my humble opinion. So, if it's
Right.
not the full wolf moon that the Ojibwe were looking at, can you tell us a little bit about the big spirit moon and why some think that winter is a very, very good thing?
Yeah, yeah, I know. Who knew? Winter is joyous. So while some nations sort of called it the hunger moon, for the Ojibwe it was a great time because it was a time of where the lakes were frozen, so they could cross the lakes and get to other parts of the land much more easily. And plus it was easier to hunt because, you know, there was less foliage around, so the meals were great. And this time of year was said to be represented by the winter maker, and he is the big spirit. So January is called the moon of the big spirit, and December was called the moon of the little spirit. Now winter maker, if we look in the sky, is Orion. And you can see here, I think this is one of Carl's pictures, that you can see Orion in the sky, and he is said to represent, say, this winter maker that comes or can be seen in the sky from December through to March. And during this time, it's also a time of the family can really bond together, a bit like the Danish hygge, if you've heard of that. It's a similar kind of thing, where the women are making stews and they get to be with the daughters, and the men are preparing for the spring and they take the sun. So it's a real bonding, beautiful time. It's not a time to not celebrate at all.
And there's a specific ritual that goes along with the winter maker, something about arrows. Is that correct?
Yeah, and we can see it in this picture. So come February, people have had enough of winter maker and would like him to move along. Thank you very much. I think we all feel that. So one of the rituals to get him to hurry along, thank you very much, is to go up and the Ojibwe people shoot an arrow at the sky towards Orion to try and shoot him out of the sky. And I was told that still happens today. Families go out and they go into a field and shoot up at the sky to do this. But also it's a great thing to do with kids, because about February time they've got sort of cabin fever and are really driving you mad, so it gives them something to go and do that's fun. So it's yeah, it's a beautiful ritual.
Great way to lose arrows too. All right, Helen, thank you so much. As always, we'll check back with you momentarily. Helen will return soon to tell us everything we need to know about werewolves. That's right, I said it. And coming up next, do wolves really howl at the full moon? We'll find out when I'm joined by Cameron Feaster of the International Wolf Center. And you'll stay with us if you know what's good for you.
As we celebrate our 13th anniversary, we're excited to bring you the all-new Slooh.com with an all-new reservation system, brand new telescopes, and introducing Slooh Recommends. We're bringing the universe closer than ever before. Coming soon to Slooh, where there's space for everyone.
Yes, the classic, the immortal Teen Wolf, 1985. A little more trivia for you. You know, it took 4 hours every time they applied that werewolf makeup. It took only 21 days to make the entire film. 21 days. I'm surprised it took that long. Welcome back to our full Wolf Moon show here at Slooh, Space for Everyone. I'm Jerry Monteur. Now, we've talked about the full wolf moon and how it got its name, but now we want to get to know those wolves a little better. We've got our live feeds from the International Wolf Center in Minnesota, and now I'm also joined by one of their educators, and we welcome to the program Cameron Feaster. Our big question tonight, Cameron, we're going to get it out of the way right off the top. Do wolves actually howl at the moon or not?
So there is a long misconception about wolves and how they howl to the moon. And so it's not true. Wolves do not howl to the moon. The connection with it might be that there tends to be a little bit more light during the full moon. Obviously, when we have a little bit of extra more light out there, wolves might be more prone to hunting. And so the idea is that wolves tend to howl to one another, to rally together, sometimes before a hunt. And so there's a theory going out there that maybe there's a little bit more howling when the moon is full, meaning that there's more light. There might be more better opportunity to hunt at night. But as far as science has been able to tell, there is no actual connection to the wolf and the moon itself when it comes to actually howling at the moon.
Okay, do you find that wolves might act differently depending on the phase of the moon?
Not that I've been able to see in any research out there. There's a lot of activity at night with wolves, and we see that quite a bit with captive animals here, like we have at the International Wolf Center. And so there might be more opportunities for us to view the animals when there's more light out there, but there doesn't seem to be any correlation with the cycle of the moon and wolf activity.
So I'm getting the feeling that people howl at the moon more often than wolves do. So,
yeah, we get a little bit of the phrases out there.
I'm sorry. So listen, we know that wolves appear often in mythology. Is that one of the reasons that people fear them?
You know, it might be. So there's a lot of fear and a lot of negativity that surrounded the wolf, especially earlier in our history. And a lot of that can go back to perhaps being that there was more conflict with people and wolves out there, being they were more widespread and people didn't have a good scientific understanding of this animal earlier in our history. And so that probably added into a lot of the fear factor with the wolf and also some of the mystery behind this animal. A lot of times we fear what we don't quite understand. And being that there's large predators out on this landscape in North America, that can be very intimidating. And so that can easily go into children's stories, as you may know, and our beliefs about this animal that we really didn't quite understand at the time.
It's just become a real political football too, hasn't it? I mean, there are many people out there who just want to eradicate wolves.
Right, absolutely. And so there is a big polarization when it comes to this animal. There are a lot of people who are very gung-ho for having wolves in every place that they can possibly be, and there's many others who would prefer that the wolf simply didn't exist anymore. And so this is a very polarized topic. There's a lot of people on very different sides about this matter, and that's why we're here. We're here to educate about wolves and about the scientific information about them. We try to stay away from any bias. We don't want to talk about we don't want to educate from one side or the other. We want to be in the middle talking about the actual science about this animal.
Now we've got a live shot of the wolves. How many wolves do you have at the center? And I can see they're not very active, at least in this shot. Normally, would they be?
Yeah, so we have 7 wolves on site. We have Aiden, Denali, Bolts, Luna, Axel, Grayson, and Brizzer. So in this shot here, we have Aiden and Denali, Axel, Grayson, and Bolts. It's kind of hard to tell which one's which at the time at this point, but I can see that Aiden and one of the pups, which is Axel and Grayson, are sitting on the right there, and then Bolts is sitting in the foreground. He's kind of hard to see there, but they're all in there. And we have a separate enclosure that you saw earlier with Luna and Drizzer. Luna was the wolf that was walking around. There she is. She's laying down in the background there. And so she's got attached there. She's probably protecting that quite a bit. And so right now, there's not a lot of activity. It varies throughout the night. They are quite active during the nighttime. During the winter time, there's a bit more activity during the day, but during the summer, they're what we call crepuscular, meaning they're most active at dawn and dusk. Being active in the hottest part of the day in the afternoon is not really beneficial to them in the summer because they waste a lot of energy during that time.
Would you please tell them they're on camera?
Yeah, they seem to know it, and that's exactly when nap time is.
Okay, we'll talk to their agents and get back to you. All right, one final thing. This is a personal plea. Cameron, I live in the state of Maine, and people claim that they see wolves occasionally, especially in northern Maine, but they really haven't been verified. What do you think they're seeing? Could it be a coyote hybrid? And do you think wolves will ever make a comeback here in the state of Maine? Because I want it.
Yeah, so we do have wolves out in Canada, in eastern Canada. We have the eastern timber wolf out there. And there's a lot of news out there about the hybridization that's gone on between coyotes and wolves in that area, creating the common term is toy wolves out there. And so there are hybrids out there, but it's hard to say exactly what people are seeing in Maine. They could be seeing wolves, they could be seeing coyotes. It's very hard to determine because unless you have good eyes on what they're seeing, if you have a biologist out there that's able to tell what exactly they're seeing, sometimes at a distance, a coyote and a wolf can be hard to distinguish between. They do have distinct characteristics if you get a good look at them. For instance, coyotes have larger ears and they have a pointier nose. It's more fox-like than a dog-like, whereas the wolf has stouter ears. They have a broader muzzle. And so if you get a really good look at them, you can sort of tell between them. But sometimes, you know, when you get that fleeting glance of a canine running through the woods, usually you don't get a great look at it, especially if folks are not familiar with seeing these animals out there. It can be very difficult to tell. So wolves do travel quite a ways. They travel a long distance, especially if they're in search of a mate. Sometimes younger animals will disperse and leave the pack to try to find their own mate. And so they may travel hundreds of miles looking for this mate. So it's very, very possible that wolves can easily get to Maine.
Well, I hope so. Fingers crossed. Of course, a lot of these people who claim they see wolves also have seen Bigfoot. So, you know what I'm saying. Yeah. Hey, Cameron, thanks so much. Enjoy your full wolf moon in Minnesota.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Cameron Feaster from the International Wolf Center. Coming up on the show, we've learned all about the importance of wolves to other cultures, but what about werewolves? We'll find out where this monster myth got its start in just a moment. We're excited to announce the release of our first book, The Saturn Above It, an anthology of short fiction about space. Available now at slooh.com. Yes, the immortal Teen Wolf. And by the way, Michael J. Fox said he hated it and would not take part in the sequel. He hated it. He's not alone. All right, welcome back to our full Wolf Moon show here on Slooh, Space for Everyone. I'm your host, Jerry Monteur. Did you ever find yourself howling at the moon? You know you did. Did you wake up after the full moon in a strange place with an odd stain on your shirt that kind of looked like blood, an odd taste in your mouth? Your shirt's been torn to shreds. Well, you, my friend, could be a werewolf. The myth of the werewolf has been around for centuries, and Helen returns now to shed some light on how the werewolf originated. So, Helen, welcome back. How will I know if I'm turning into a werewolf tonight? Please tell me.
Well, I think you'll take a look at the expressions on the faces of the people around you as they're running past you to the door, and that might give you a clue that you're
I
turning
mean, that's
into
the
a
that's the
werewolf.
first way I'll know. It's not the fingernails and the hair and the
Well,
no.
yeah, supposedly it starts with a rash around the neck. And
Yes.
then there's increased hairiness, an aversion to water. The nails obviously start to get longer. Some irritability, which is just me on every full moon.
I was just going to say that. It's me every day.
And then the weirdest thing I read was that if your ring finger is longer than your middle finger, then I'm afraid it's absolutely time you went and locked yourself in a cupboard this evening, because you are most definitely, my friend, a werewolf. So any of those symptoms, Jerry?
Two of them, but
Guess
not
what?
all. So I guess I'm okay for the time being. But people seriously used to believe in werewolves. Where the hell did that come from?
Yeah, they did. They did. And they were terrified. I mean, from the stories, it must have been really terrifying for them. And you know, it all comes down to, I'm afraid, some religion. So we sort of could see it emerge, the werewolf and the concept of a werewolf, in the Middle Ages in Europe. And were, like W-E-R-E, means man. So werewolf is a man wolf. Well, there we go. Look, there's a werewolf. And just you know, incidentally, in other cultures there is a were-leopard and a were-tiger and a were-lion in Africa. But in Europe in the Middle Ages, if you sort of think about it, at this period of time, it's the fall of Rome. And so the control has sort of shifted from being from a state or a government to the church. So the church is rising up at this time, and what it doesn't want is any sort of former traditional beliefs or rituals that do not fit into its doctrine. So where I think this has sort of came from, this idea that sort of, you know, we've got to give some big bad PR to wolves, is that for thousands of years and sort of leading up to the Middle Ages still, people practiced what's called shape-shifting. Not like this. And I think, so shape-shifting, and I don't know if you know about shape-shifting.
I do a little bit, yes, because I used to do it. But go ahead. Yeah.
So shape-shifting is it's a really beautiful ritual, and you can still practice it today, actually, if you find a teacher. So it's where, as a human, you want to take on the qualities of something that's non-human. So maybe that's a tree, maybe it's a condor, maybe it's a seal, or perhaps it's a wolf. And the reason you want to do this is not for evil deeds. It's really just, you know, to sort of, I say, take on qualities that you don't have and use them to help others, or use them on sort of your spiritual path, or as part of your rituals, to gain insight into your life. So where does the wolf come in? So the wolf was seen as one of the greatest totems. It was a very, very sacred animal, and so it was very popular to have in a shape-shifting ceremony where you sort of bring that energy in. And some people would say that you actually shifted shape into a wolf or to whatever it was, and some say you merely just brought their energies in. So it depends on how powerful a shapeshifter, I guess, you were. But the wolf was super sacred, and for many reasons that, you know, are the opposite to what we think about a werewolf. So wolves are incredibly sociable. Very loyal. They're very strong, great communicators. You can hear the howls like 6 miles away, and they also sort of have their rituals of their own. So that's why they're sort of seen as very sacred. So really, like, an honor of the wolf was how people felt about the wolf before the church came along and slapped it down.
Yeah. So more about this shape shifting. I think of shape-shifting and I think of people turning into animals, but that's not necessarily what it's all about. And it wasn't wiped out in the Middle Ages then, was it?
Oh, I don't know. No, I assume not. But I would think that within the rituals there was still this shape shifting. So now, if you, I say, you can train and do it. I'm sure if you look online, you'll find how to shape shift. Part of a shape shifting ritual is sort of music and chanting and dance, and normally you're with someone who's well versed in these topics, and you can sort of start bringing in the movement that you imagine of whatever it is you're wanting to shape shift into. So if you want to become a wolf, you're going to start, slinking around perhaps, and you're going to start howling as if you're a wolf. You're really trying to bring the wolf into you. And those were the kind of things that I guess you may have seen in Europe in the Middle Ages, or certainly there was this strong sort of historical connection as between the wolf and man as being very, very sacred, that was frowned upon, that needed to be eradicated.
So why do you think there's such a connection between werewolves and the full moon? Why, when you think of werewolves, do you only think of the full moon?
Well, I think it's all part, to be honest, of this whole sort of eradication of anything that was like smacked of paganism, because when you think about paganism, the pagans, and really, we call them pagans, but the traditional way that our society ran, and mostly you look at indigenous cultures around the world, it's still happening, is that we were connected to the moon, and we felt that connection to the moon. Everything we did was around the moon, so our rituals were around a full moon. So I think if you sort of imagine that, how do you, one, break up the connection between man and something sacred like a wolf that is not in the church doctrine, and two, break the connection with this moon ritual? Well, I would think you would create a story where man and wolf merging together results in this sort of devilish combination of like a savage that kills humans, and it happens to be around a full moon. And I know I've read some sort of reports from the Middle Ages, some coming out of Germany, where they sort of pinned a bunch of mass murders of psychopaths on the fact that they must have been a werewolf. So it sort of terrified the bejesus out of people, so they just, in a full moon, stayed in and whoa, yes,
well, yeah.
They were expecting that in the forest. And so on a full moon, they just stayed in, and therefore they stopped practicing their rituals, and then gradually all those beautiful traditions just kind of died out. And another interesting fact, that this whole sort of werewolf myth was growing up around the time of the witch hunts and the witch trials. So you could be accused of being a werewolf, and like a witch, you were then brought in and you went through a series of tests, and then you may be drowned or hung or burned, whatever you were. So it was a terrifying time, and I actually think more terrifying to be accused of being a werewolf than to actually meet a werewolf.
Yeah, because much like today's in politics, you don't have to prove anything. All right, it's kind of interesting. Werewolves have real staying power, don't they? I mean, this has been going on for a very, very long time, and it wasn't necessarily fun for everybody back then, but it kind of is now.
Yes, it is. I know, it's fun to think about, and all these. I know you don't like them, but I love these movies, so I'm happy that the werewolves.
No, don't get me wrong. I love good werewolf movies, but I haven't seen one.
Okay. Yeah, so there are a lot of fun things these days. I was reading online about all the fun ways that you can become a werewolf. So one is if you drink water from like the pool of water that collects in wolf footprints as they trek through mud. If you go and find one of those footprints and drink the water, you'll become a werewolf. Apparently there's a river somewhere in Germany where if you drink the water, you'll become a werewolf. One thing I was reading, if you're a woman who has an affair, you turn into a werewolf. I wonder who came up with that idea. So lots of sort of fun and
I'll go along with that, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, lots of fun things around being a werewolf.
Hey, Helen, before we let you go, by the way, there's nothing like a spirited lycanthropy lesson, so thank you for that. But you're going to be very proud of me because I've done a couple of things just in case tonight. Just in case, I've got my Wolf's Bane, which I got on Amazon. Of course, I get everything on. I can get anything on Amazon these days. I got the Wolf's Bane just in case, and this looks like a flask, and it might be, but it's silver. and it's got holy water in it.
Oh,
So I'm all set. I don't think that I'm going to become a werewolf, but just in case one attacks, I'm all set. You proud of
and I
me?
hate to tell you, Jerry, they're not going to work. The only thing is a silver bullet.
Come on.
Sorry.
You know what I paid for this? All right. Well, I'll just lock my doors and take my chances. All right, Helen, thank you so much. Appreciate it as always. Good stuff.
Good night.
And that about wraps it up for us here tonight on Slooh. We hope you've enjoyed tonight's show. If you missed anything, Slooh members can watch any of our previous broadcasts at any time. And if you've got a friend or family member who's got a passion for outer space or werewolves, give the gift of a Slooh membership. Just go to slooh.com for details. It's right on our homepage. We do this all the time here at Slooh. We got a lot of great shows on the way in the coming months. On February 2nd, we're celebrating Groundhog Day, right alongside Punxsutawney Phil himself. We'll find out how the holiday came to be and how a giant rodent's shadow can predict the weather. Plus, we'll see if we can use the cosmos to predict Phil's prediction. And the very first solar eclipse of 2017 is right around the corner. Also in February, the Ring of Fire will sweep across South America, the Atlantic, and parts of Africa on February 26th. And we're already making plans here for the big transcontinental eclipse on August 21st. The total solar eclipse will make its way across the entirety of the United States, and Slooh will be on site to capture the whole thing. Be sure to follow our ongoing coverage of this once-in-a-lifetime event. We hope to see you on a future show, but that's it for today. Don't forget your wolfsbane or silver bullets, Helen. I'm Jerry Moulton. This is Slooh, space for everyone.